The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
All right, so yesterday we talked about Bernie Sanders taking, within the margin of error, lead against Hillary Clinton in the Iowa Democratic Caucus primary polls. But as Lewis said, the national numbers aren't looking great for Bernie Sanders. And I actually got an email. I got several emails. Here's one email I received from Alan where he said, "Hey, David, I was looking at the poll results at realclearpolitics.com. According to what they have posted now, Hillary Clinton is polling at 48%, Bernie Sanders has 23%, and Joe Biden has 18%, with Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, and Lincoln Chafee collectively holding 4.2%. I assume the remaining 7% is undecided. So if we transfer all of Joe Biden, Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, and Lincoln Chafee's support to Bernie Sanders, that still only totals 45% to Hillary's 48%. Assuming Hillary holds steady at 47 and they split the undecided voters, that puts Hillary over 50%. What do you think about this? Let's not sugarcoat this, Lewis. What Nate Silver said on 538.com, I believe is exactly right, which is Hillary Clinton needs to make a mistake and or have a fall in favorability in order for Bernie Sanders to have a real shot. As Alan points out, as of today, nationally, if Biden doesn't run and Bernie Sanders gets all of Joe Biden's support, which we know is not going to happen, if Lincoln Chafee and Webb and O'Malley disappear and Bernie Sanders gets all of their support, he would still be losing to Hillary Clinton nationally. That is absolutely correct. However, let's remember that Hillary Clinton's favorability has been eroding. It's not eroding nationally to the same extent that it has been eroding in the early primary states of New Hampshire and Iowa. For example, Hillary Clinton had favorability and was polling more than 50% in Iowa for months. And now for the first time, Bernie Sanders has just slightly surpassed Hillary Clinton in Iowa. So I completely agree. Nationally, it is an uphill battle for Bernie Sanders. Nationally, name recognition is a problem for Bernie Sanders. There's two ways to look at this. If you look at just the numbers today, it's tough for Bernie Sanders nationally. If you look at a chart graphing the trends, you see that Hillary Clinton has been going down and Bernie Sanders has been going up. That is where I am today, Lewis. Bernie Sanders is in a tough position, but the numbers are not impossible if Hillary Clinton's favorability continues to erode.
Yeah, so let's hope it does. But could a victory in Iowa and New Hampshire for Bernie change the landscape? I mean, what would that do for his name recognition?
So in 2000, Al Gore won the Iowa primary and ultimately became the nominee. In 2004, John Kerry won the Iowa primary and ultimately became the nominee. In 2008, Barack Obama won the Iowa primary and, as you know, ultimately became the Democratic nominee.
Yeah, but they were all leading at the time, weren't they?
Nationally?
Yes.
I don't know. That's a good question. I did not look into that. But my point is, and I think it's sort of what you're asking, yes, winning the Iowa and New Hampshire primaries for Bernie Sanders, even if he's not in the lead nationally, but maybe he can close it from a 20-something point deficit to a 10-point deficit or something, could give him the momentum to do something real in Nevada and South Carolina, which are the two primaries, the third and fourth primary, right? The two that follow New Hampshire and Iowa. That's where we are right now. And as we've done in the past, I think Nate Silver has a good grasp on this, which is Bernie Sanders can win, but he needs to ride the decreasing favorability or possible mistake from Hillary Clinton to make it happen.
And we still all need to keep pushing for Bernie Sanders because, keep posting those Facebook memes and keep telling your friends about Bernie. You got to do it.
There's a new HIV prevention pill that is 100% effective in a new study. Wait a second, 100%? Yeah, but we'll explain why. The study was conducted by Kaiser Permanente in San Francisco. It involved 600 people identified as being at high risk for contracting HIV. Most were men who have sex with other men. All of the individuals were healthy at the time of enrollment. They were put on a daily regimen of a blue pill called Truvada as a pre-exposure prophylaxis, preventive care. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says that this has been shown to reduce the risk of HIV infection by up to 92% when taken daily, but the effectiveness goes way down when taken inconsistently. In this study, 100% of the participants remained HIV free. Some caveats to the study. There was no control group, right? So there is no control for the participants' partner's HIV status. If the 600 participants never have sexual contact with anybody who has HIV, we can't really say the pill's 100% effective because they may not have been exposed to anyone with HIV. So the 100% number is making a lot of headlines, Lewis, but without a control group, we can't really say for sure that that's the effectiveness of this pill.
You really can't say anything, in my opinion. I mean, if you want to find out the effectiveness of this pill, you have to give people the pill and then expose them to HIV.
Number two, only a small portion of the study's participants were surveyed about behavior changes. And what we need to consider is when you're taking a pill that is meant to prevent acquiring some kind of disease or condition, you might choose to engage in riskier behavior because you know that you are on that pill. That is also something which this study did not measure. So the results are very, very interesting. There's no question about that. But without the proper controls, there's not there's significant critique that could be done of this. The other broader problem is it is very difficult to get people to take a pill every single day preventively. Obviously, if you're suffering from an acute condition, it's much more likely that you will take a pill daily because presumably every time you take that pill, it's improving the acute condition you have. When you're taking something preventatively, we know from studies that it is much more difficult to get people to take it every single day. And as we know, if you don't, it becomes far less effective.
Yeah, I think if this study were following at least 5,000 extremely high-risk individuals for like a decade and still had this 100% rate, that my ears would probably perk up then. But as of right now, this seems pretty meaningless to me.
It's not meaningless. And there's this other discussion, Lewis, about whether this pill could lead to eventually finding a vaccine for HIV. And that's a totally different story. That would be an absolute game changer. So I don't think it's meaningless. Even the 86 to 92% effectiveness that has been found in prior studies, it's all very, very interesting. But when you get a salacious headline, 100% effective at preventing HIV, it's disappointing when you look at the data and realize that that headline is mostly meaningless.
Yes, it is an incredibly misleading headline, and there have been major breakthroughs in this realm, and we're making progress, but we need to have some responsible reporting here.
Let's talk about the future of the David Pakman Show. We've talked about the new network name. The David Pakman Show will eventually be just one of hopefully several shows that we're going to be producing at the new Boston studio. So we have been in the hunt for a network name that will sort of be the overarching name for the programming we produce. We have launched a poll at davidpakman.com. If you scroll down the right side of the website, you will see the poll where I invite you to vote with the 5 finalists, Lewis, for the network name. And I will present them to you now. And Lewis, I will ask you to withhold your opinion to not influence the audience in terms of which way to vote. The first one is the one I came up with, TDPN, right? It's sort of simple. It maintains the DP. We can keep the DP logo, but add to it. And that's one idea, TDPN. But maybe we want something that is altogether different. So the other 4 options that we have determined are sort of the finalists are the New Media Network, which would be NMN. That's idea number 2. Lewis's idea, the Progressive Collective, known also as TPC. We have the Progress Network, TPN. And lastly, the Independent Mind Network, IMN. So the acronyms for the 5 possibilities, TDPN, NMN, TPC, TPN, and IMN. Lewis, I think we have a range of ideas represented there. We have a range of different sounding acronyms for the network. And at this point, we will wait and see what the results are from the audience. Everybody is free to vote at davidpakman.com.
Everyone who is listening needs to vote. This is the most important vote you will ever cast in your life. So please get out there and rock the vote. Make it happen. And
while you're at davidpakman.com voting, why not sign up for our newsletter or maybe even become members at davidpakman.com/membership just to really solidify your investment in the future of the network to be named, based in part at least on the results of this poll. Now, Lewis, let's put this out there. If the poll results are completely overwhelming, I think that would be much more influential in our ultimate decision than if we have one that has 21% positive, 21% of the vote, and another having 19, and another having 16. That would not be as definitive or as influential, I think, compared to if the voting is just hugely lopsided.
Agreed, yes, but that could still happen. We could have thousands of votes cast for each of these. And so, I mean, if something wins by 1%, we still have to go with that, don't we?
No, we don't. Absolutely not. I mean, ultimately, Lewis, we are allowed to decide. And if the voting is very, very close, I like what you're doing, Lewis. And I think a lot of people in the audience will like what you're saying. But of course, ultimately, it is going to be our call. But what I'm saying is...
What you're saying is that you're the decider. And that you have veto power.
We do maintain veto power, but I think it would be very interesting if the audience were to be very much in favor of one of those options.
Okay, if by what margin would one of these have to be ahead of the other for you to say my veto power is now meaningless? I have to go with this one. What are we talking here?
I am not. I have not thought about it, and I'm not prepared to make such a statement.
Okay, fine. Play that game, Dave. That's fine.
Send us your thoughts on Twitter after you vote. I'm at twitter.com/dpakman. Lewis is at twitter.com/LewisMotomedy.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Unlike some of those other shows you may watch, our program is not supported by big corporations or media conglomerates, but rather by our audience through the membership program. You can go to davidpakman.com/membership to sign up. Today, we have a new member of the day. His name is Michael Andrews. Michael, I can't thank you enough. Michael gets access to the bonus show, the commercial-free podcast feed, so much other stuff. And this coming Tuesday, we will have, the 15th, a David Pakman Show members-only town hall. It's basically a private video conference with our members. Lewis is there, I'm there, and you can ask us any questions you want. Every member, as of Tuesday morning, will be invited, so sign up today at davidpakman.com/membership. 3 years ago this week, Christopher Stevens, U.S. ambassador to Libya, and 3 embassy staffers were killed in an attack on the American consulate in Benghazi. Over 125 men are said to have assaulted the consulate. It was said that the attack was a response to the Innocence of Muslims film, which insulted the Prophet Muhammad. The American right immediately started attacking Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration for letting this happen, in spite of the fact that there were over a dozen such attacks under George W. Bush, none of which were even remotely controversial. And there has been so much money poured into hearing after hearing to figure out what sinister things Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama did or didn't do relating to this attack on Benghazi. Most of these investigations have not concluded that anything wrong was done by President Obama or Hillary Clinton, or in some cases, they were merely inconclusive. The United States House Select Committee on Benghazi final report is due in 2016. You're probably saying, wait a second, I thought we already got the final report 10 times. We did. This is another final report. And for Hillary Clinton, there's this interesting thing. The incident was very tragic, Lewis. Anytime you have an incident like this, it is very tragic. The hypocrisy comes in the right's attempt to make this about President Obama or Hillary Clinton when there was no concern at all for what George W. Bush and his administration were doing, when this happened 12 or 14 times under George W. Bush's watch. That's the obvious hypocrisy, and it really exposes that this is just a naked attempt to criticize Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration at any opportunity.
I think so. If you want to get really technical, it could be argued, although it might go further back, that the Bush administration is responsible for ISIS. Certainly other terrorist organizations have grown as a result of the actions of the Bush administration. So yes, somehow the email scandal here has taken the spotlight away from Benghazi. I'm wondering that if Hillary becomes the nominee, if all of this Benghazi stuff will come back. And
yeah, I think it will, because right now, I think with Hillary, it's focus on the most recent. But if she were to become the nominee, then it's, hey, let's focus on all of these different issues. And there would be Benghazi stuff, there would be email stuff. Although I'm starting to feel like Benghazi has sort of run its course. I think it will be an issue for some, but I don't think it will be what it would have been had the primaries been a year and a half ago.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure what month that report is coming out, but I really doubt there's going to be anything noteworthy in it. But if there is, and it does come out before before November, well, maybe it could have an impact.
I don't think there will be anything even remotely noteworthy in that report. No question about it. 2 years ago this week, Russell Brand was kicked out of the GQ Awards for pointing out that one of the sponsors, Hugo Boss, manufactured Nazi uniforms. Let's take a look at that.
Also glad to grace the stage where Boris Johnson has just made light of the use of chemical weapons in Syria, meaning that GQ can now stand for Genocide Quips. I mention that only to make this next comment a bit lighter, because if any of you know a little bit about history and fashion will know that Hugo Boss made the uniforms for the Nazis. And the Nazis did have flaws, but, they did look fantastic. Let's face it.
Some people like Russell Brand, some people don't. I'm sort of in the middle. He can be very funny. He does genuinely seem to want to make the world a better place. I don't agree with him on all issues. I think that on some issues he's just sort of misguided, not out of malice, but more just out of not having all the information on a lot of issues, including wealth and income inequality. He really astutely puts together some really good arguments. When you're a celebrity, people pay more attention to you. More people pay more attention to you. And corporate media also helps people to pay more attention to you. And it's one of those situations, Lewis, where we have to take what we can that Russell Brand points out that we think is good, and he is making somewhat of an impact, and he is discussing some issues that we would be very well served to have discussed more frequently. At the top of my list is that of income and wealth inequality.
Yeah, most celebrities, most people at Brand's level of celebrity will not use the spotlight to make statements like this. They will not accept an award or present an award and say something inflammatory or outrageous. So I think we can be glad that there are people like Brand who will use this to their advantage in situations like this.
And as the organizer of an event, I could understand why this is a disaster for you, but Russell Brand is at least able to make his arguments coherently and logically. To sort of show you a contrast to that, sometimes when celebrities try to make political points, it sounds like this.
With the breach of 3 levees protecting New Orleans, the landscape of the city has changed dramatically, tragically, and perhaps irreversibly. There's now over 25 feet of water where there was once city streets and thriving neighborhoods.
I hate the way they portray us in the media. If you see a black family, it says they're looting. See a white family, it says they're looking for food. And you know it's been 5 days because most of the people are black. And even for me to complain about, I would be a hypocrite because I've tried to turn away from the TV because it's too hard to watch. I've even been shopping before even giving a donation. So now I'm calling my business manager right now to see what is the biggest amount I can give. And just to imagine if I was if I was down there, and those are my people down there. So anybody out there that wants to do anything that we can help with the setup, the way America is set up to help the poor, the black people, the less well off as slow as possible. I mean, Red Cross is doing everything they can. We already realize a lot of the people that could help are at war right now, fighting another way, and they've given them permission to go down and shoot us.
And subtle, but in even many ways more profoundly devastating, is the lasting damage to the survivors' will to rebuild and remain in the area. The destruction of the spirit of the people of southern Louisiana and Mississippi may end up being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Please call.
In the past few...
Yeah, so Kanye West, I mean, a very different sort of scenario there.
Yes, well, one of the two people we're talking about here is intelligent and funny, and the other is Kanye West. So, not that great a statement from Kanye.
The entire George W. Bush doesn't care about black people thing that Kanye West did is one of my favorite celebrities going political moments that I can recall.
It's one of my favorites as well, but not because all of the crazy things he said really, resonate with us.
No.
Just because it was an incredible television moment, really.
Yeah, and the look on Mike Myers' face when that happens. I mean, you couldn't, if you were to script that and prepare everybody's reactions to it, you wouldn't get a better incident than Mike Myers looking stunned, and then the camera cutting back to, I think it was Chris Tucker, who looked just as confused about where to go next.
I will say this, it's still a pretty impressive poker face by Mike Myers. He held it together pretty well, considering what was happening, 2 feet away from him.
1 year ago this week, we answered the audience question of who would win in a fight, Batman versus Superman. And, it's fun to speculate on this, but we actually might have the question answered by Hollywood. There's a movie coming out in March of 2016 called Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. And, Batman and Superman have been done to death at this point. So it seems like it is the logical next step to keep extracting as much money as possible from these franchises to combine the two. I can't say that I'm very excited about this. I love the original Superman movies with Christopher Reeve. I liked that reboot of the Superman movies. And Lewis, I forget the guy who played Superman.
I don't remember his name either.
I think it was Chris something or Mike. Okay, well, I don't remember exactly. And the original Batman movies with Michael Keaton, absolutely loved them. In fact, the 1989 or 1990 Batman with Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton, the first movie I saw after moving to the United States. And I also liked the Christian Bale reboot of Batman. And I just am not interested in this Superman versus Batman thing.
Yeah, Ben Affleck is playing Batman in this one. I can't say I'm excited about it, but I am a little curious about it. So I will watch it if people tell me that it's at least somewhat entertaining. And, it could be all right. But I'm curious to see two superheroes duke it out, right?
What's the last superhero movie you saw that you really liked?
That I really liked? That is tough. It has been a while. It was probably the last X-Men movie. I've been a pretty big fan of all of them, and the last two have not disappointed. They were fun.
I don't know that I've seen a superhero movie since not the most recent Batman one, but the one with the late Heath Ledger in it. I actually think that's the most recent superhero movie I saw.
Well, you've missed quite a few. You never saw, you didn't see The Avengers?
No. Not into that type of thing.
Yeah, I know, but you might be entertained by it. At least the first one. Don't watch the newest one. It's garbage.
You know what I saw that was sort of referential to a superhero? I saw Birdman with Michael Keaton, and it was a fantastic movie.
Yes, Birdman, quite funny, and a lot of inside jokes there. Michael Keaton playing a washed-up actor who was famous for playing a flying superhero. Pretty funny.
All right, we'll take a break. We have such a great interview coming up for you after the break. I love this one.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Today's classic interview is not necessarily linked to anything that's going on now in particular. It's not particularly timely based on any other guests that we've had. It's just one of my funniest interview memories that I have when I think back to interviews we've done. It's from February 10th of 2011, and it's when I interviewed Craig Gross from XXXchurch.com, and the interview was about porn addiction and his thoughts about homosexuality. And what made me think of it is that there's this documentary now on Netflix. I believe it's in the documentary Hot Girls Wanted, which is a movie about the sort of amateur-ish porn modeling world. It's a very interesting documentary, and they interview Craig Gross. And if I'm wrong, it may be because it's about a documentary on the legalization of sex work. And now I've seen so many documentaries recently that I don't remember which it is that Craig Gross is in. But in any event, this is the interview from years and years ago when Craig Gross was not as well known as a sort of anti-porn advocate. And it's just a hilarious interview. So let's not delay anymore. February 10th, 2011, my interview with Craig Gross.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I first heard about you. You've been getting a ton of press over the last week and, of course, around the Super Bowl. And I'm just trying to figure out, are you a church? Are you an actual pastor or not?
I'm an actual pastor, but I would say we're not an actual church as you know it, building and Sunday services, so to speak, but an online community.
And so the big issue has been porn addiction. You've gotten some football players to participate in what I guess I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what you believe is a significant concern. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved in this topic.
Yeah, about 9 years ago is when I started XXXchurch.com. And the idea was just to create a safe place online where people could get help and they could get the truth about pornography. So for the last 9 years, we've just really set out to just help people, raise awareness that this is an issue, prevent people from actually, involving this in their life, and then help people with recovery. Those are the things we've been up to.
And how did you figure out that this was such a big issue? I mean, are you a former porn addict or current maybe? I mean, I don't know.
For me, no. I mean, I can count the number of times that I saw this growing up as a kid. I was an actual youth pastor, and so I started working with kids that back in the late 90s where this is what they were struggling with. That nobody knew it was online now. They didn't have to pursue it. It was kind of pursuing them.
So when you were a youth pastor, people would come to you unprovoked. In other words, you hadn't prompted this idea of are you or are you not addicted to online porn? And they would say, Craig, I can't stop looking at online porn.
Yeah, it was just a number of kids that you do a talk at church or at camp. And especially with the guys, they would just kind of come up to you and say, yeah, this is an issue that I'm struggling with and nobody knows. It's so easy to find online, and here's where I'm at.
So what percentage of people, I mean, do you have a sense of what percentage of people in the general population are addicted to porn? Is it more men than women?
It's definitely more men than women, but there's a growing trend of women that now are looking at this. I mean, they estimate between 30 and 40 million people every day logging on to pornographic web pages. It's, I think, the third most popular thing to do online.
But so actually, what percentage? I mean, 30 to 40 million are logging on. Certainly you don't think all of those are addicted, right?
No, I don't think everybody's addicted. I mean, we're not going to be in favor of just the casual use, but I just know this stuff is very progressive and it's very, I think, addicting. And so what you're looking at online eventually could take you offline. What you're looking at maybe started off as softcore as progressed in days to hardcore. So no, I think there's more people that are in over their heads with porn than would admit to it. Nobody wants to admit they're really in trouble. And that's the thing, like with AA, I think is great about AA. You go to AA in any city in America and you admit, hey, I'm an alcoholic. No one wants to admit, for various reasons, that they're struggling with this. So there's so many people that are in denial. And until you accept it and until you understand that you're in maybe too deep, you're not going to get out of this or even on any sort of process of recovery.
Yeah, I was looking at the test you have on your website. People can log on. I think it's 40 or so questions roughly. And they're yes or no questions. And the idea is to determine if you are addicted to porn. And some of the questions struck me, like, for example, Are any of your sexual activities against the law? Do you hide your sexual behavior from others? I have been sexual with minors. A lot of these relate to crime, not to watching online porn. Have you had people come to you and admit to sex with minors, or have people admitted to crimes to you?
Yeah, I get letters from jail every week. I mean, I've taken people to jail, so it's.
So again, have you had, outside of the test, have people you've had people come to you and confess things that resulted in you taking them to jail?
Yeah. I mean, I took a guy I met at a church that told me how he was. I mean, I didn't get him arrested. He told me, "Here's what's happening." And, I'm going through this process and I'll probably go to jail. Most of the time when we hear those stories, people have already gotten caught. No one's going to tell me something still, probably, if they haven't been found out.
I'm curious what your position is on gay marriage. And the reason I bring it up is many people I've interviewed who have very strong positions on porn and morality and revealing billboards also are very, very anti-gay. They believe people who are gay are going to hell. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think the church loves to, speak out against things. We've always just tried to speak on things that, one, we know about, and two, that we can offer help with. I don't, just like pornography, I mean, I'm not, I would say homosexual lifestyle is not something that as a believer that I would, support, just like I don't support porn, but I try and understand people that are dealing with this. So I guess I'm not against people that choose to live that way. I'm not against people that choose to look at porn. I think the gay people that I've met, and we've gone to gay porn shows, we've met a number of people that are gay. I don't understand it, say, maybe as well as I do people that are struggling with porn. And I feel like a lot of times the church just kind of speaks out against it. No, that's wrong. Well, it can be wrong. Like, I believe it's wrong, but if you don't believe the Bible, there's nothing that would stop you from believing it's right. I mean, if that's how you want to live your life, I can't.
Wait, let me jump in there. You just said, for example, you believe it's wrong. Are you referring to porn or homosexuality there?
I think both things, I would say, scripturally are wrong. Does it mean I'm against gay people, or does it mean I'm against, like, I'm not against porn. Like, I don't view porn, and I'm trying to help people that are struggling with porn. And the people that I met that are gay, I mean, I don't think it's as easy as the work that I've done with pornography, as far as, hey, here's some steps to stay away from porn. Like, the people, and I think there's not enough Christians, especially, that have gay friends, because when you meet somebody that's a homosexual that says, hey, I've met a lot of them that said, I didn't choose this. This isn't what I wanted.
And do you believe that? Do you believe that? Do you believe it's a choice?
It's very difficult to me. I think when I meet somebody that has said, hey, I wish I wasn't. And then I meet somebody that says, well, I was, and now I'm not. So once again, like, I have a tough time understanding all that. All I know is, like, we've tried to love people for who they are and what they do, no matter. I think that's what Jesus is all about. And I don't think there's three simple steps like there is with porn that I taught yesterday at church, or Sunday at church, to stop being gay.
This is interesting. This is I'm fascinated by this, because you mentioned it's not as easy with homosexuality as it is with porn. In other words, there are steps you can give someone to stay away from porn. When I hear that, and I want to be very clear because there's a big difference, it sounds like you're saying somebody could just go through a series of steps and so-called leave homosexuality. Not that you have those specific steps. You said you don't. Was that what you're saying? People could just leave homosexuality?
There's people that I've met that have told me, I don't want to be gay, but I'm not going to be active in my lifestyle because I'm a Christian. I believe that's wrong, but there's no way I'm going to be interested in, if this is a guy, I'm going to be interested in another gal. There's other people that I've met that have said, hey, I used to be a homosexual and now I'm a heterosexual. So it's to me, as somebody that kind of looks on the outside of this, I've met, it's like feminists. You meet one feminist that will say, I'm against porn. You meet another one that says, I'm for porn. And they're very split now on that issue.
So so in other words, you believe you believe people when they say they have, in other words, prayed away the gay, as the term may be. You believe that may have happened. That may be true.
I mean, I've met people that said I was gay and now I am not. But then I've met other people that have said I wish it was that easy.
Right.
So you could have a great debate, with that, I think, hands down.
We've been speaking with Craig Gross. XXXchurch.com is the website. Thanks so much for talking to us, Craig.
Hey, thanks.
All right, best of luck.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
It is that time of the week. I know I look forward to it. And from the emails we get, I think a lot of our audience looks forward to this as well. Audience questions. First question today is from Scott. Scott says, hey, David, is it offensive to use the term abortion or abortive when talking about things other than medical abortion? I don't think it is. And I will sometimes say, if there's some horrible right-wing attempt at justifying something completely unconscionable, I'll say it was a completely abortive attempt to try to do whatever. Or I will say, oh, that was a complete abortion of a screenplay or whatever. I don't think that it is offensive. And I think part of it's not an issue for me, Lewis, of minimizing the impact that having the medical procedure of an abortion can have on a woman. It's not about that. But for me, it's more that this is a term which has been made controversial specifically when applied to the medical procedure of abortion. And much of that controversy is from people on the right who want to control women's bodies and make abortion illegal, etc. But the reality is that it's a word that exists in many other contexts than medical abortion. And I actually think it's giving power to the anti-abortionists in making it controversial to say, I'm never going to describe anything as abortive on principle. So I don't think it is offensive at its face to use that term.
I agree. Just think about the term abort. The conversation has led us, unfortunately, to make that connection, no matter how we're using the word. So at its root, no, it's not offensive. It shouldn't be offensive. The term abortion shouldn't be offensive. But it's just this conversation that we've been having that, here we are discussing this.
Now, there are obviously ways we can imagine in which the term abortion or abortive could be used in a context not referring to medical abortion that could ridicule or otherwise offend people in the way that it refers to medical abortion. There's no question to me that we could get emails from people saying, here's an example of using the term for something other than medical abortion that is very offensive. I don't deny that. In the same way that the term retard, for example, has basically been phased out, hopefully by most people, as a sort of insult because it does refer to people with a certain cognitive disability, etc. But there are still contexts, like, for example, when you are landing a plane and you retard the engines, that's not offensive, right? That's not referring to using the term retard as an ad hominem. We can, as reasonable people, understand how a word can be and cannot be offensive, depending on the context and the sort of significance that it is given.
Yes, and at the same time, you could be using the term abortive in casual conversation with someone who, unbeknownst to you, might have had an abortion at some point in time or recently or whenever, and you may inadvertently, insult them or strike a chord. So I guess, you can't really predict that, but that would just be an accident.
Next question today is from Catherine, who says, hey, David, you said a little while ago you were thinking of switching to a safety razor. Did you do it, and what are the results? Yes. After talking about how I had been thinking of switching to the old school safety razors where you buy the blades, etc., I got a bunch of emails from people, and most people were recommending the same stuff, that I buy a nice heavy metal Mercure safety razor, and different recommendations about which blades to buy. A bunch of people recommended buying some German platinum-coated blades, which I indeed did, Lewis. And I have to tell you that I love it. First of all, it is so cheap. I bought this nice, sturdy metal safety razor for something like $6. And this thing is so much better than the Gillettes and the Fusions and all of this stuff that's around right now. I bought a 10-pack of double-edged, double-sided safety razors, refills, replacements, call them what you will, for something like $7. And for the amount that I need to shave, those $13 will probably last me an entire year. I didn't cut myself very much. The feel of the razor is much nicer than those hollow plastic Gillette razors. I absolutely love it.
That's great, Dave. I'm happy for you. I still use electric, and I will continue to, because I just am lazy, and I have some facial hair, and I like to look like I haven't shaved in a few hours at all times.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, it was definitely very, very smooth. Usually by the next day, I mean, I'm admitting that my facial hair grows very slowly here. Usually by the next day, I can feel something if I touch my cheeks. And when using the safety razor approach, it still feels very smooth 24 hours later, which is incredible, even for my standards.
David, I'm very glad that you're pleased with this and that you have nice, smooth cheeks. I still say that you should grow out the beard a little bit because it makes you look more distinguished.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, no, I did during my trip to Israel. I didn't shave the entire time. And when I got back, I had somewhat of a beard, and I go back and forth. But in any case, Catherine, it has been very successful so far. So thank you very much. Last question today is from Madison. Madison says, what podcasts do you listen to? Okay, I don't really listen to any political podcasts at all. And part of it is just that my prep for the show often involves listening to bits and pieces of political podcasts and reading political articles. So when I ride my bike or go running or whatever, I don't listen to political podcasts. I will pull up, oh, excuse me, I probably made a very loud microphone noise there, dropping my phone. I will tell you some of the podcasts I listen to, and there's some here that I really, really like. So one of my favorite podcasts is Forward Thinking, FW Thinking. And this is a podcast that discusses the future of a ton of different stuff. So some examples of what they discuss include, could teleportation become a real thing? That's one topic. What is the future of sewers and human waste management? That's another topic. Another topic is, do notifications on computers and mobile phones cause a sort of persistent anxiety in humans? And what's the best way to sort of manage that? Smart roads, the future of roads. These types of topics, I really like it. And if you listen to the show, you could probably understand where that sort of crosses over into what we discuss on the show. I really like the How Stuff Works podcasts, including Stuff You Should Know, Stuff to Blow Your Mind, and Stuff You Missed in History Class. Those I like. I like Freakonomics. And I know a lot of people say Freakonomics is well produced, but it is completely insane in the sort of Keynesian Chicago school of thought way in which it analyzes issues. And I don't actually agree that that's the way that they analyze issues, first of all. But I really like Freakonomics Radio, even if I don't agree with everything. From NPR, I really like Planet Money. That's a good one. And NPR has another funny short one called How to Do Everything. And it's always some very specific thing. How do you spear fish? How do you avoid getting startled when walking around and you turn a corner and someone is there? How do you manage working from outside the office? Whatever. It's really random stuff. And I think the reason I like a lot of these, Lewis, is they're just very different from what we discuss on the show. I like Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk for the most part, although sometimes I don't like it quite as much. The PBS NewsHour has some really interesting episodes. I recently heard one about both sides of the legalization of sex work debate. I really like Radiolab, and there's some others. So, Lewis, those are some of the ones I like. I don't think you listen to podcasts, do you? I know you listen to Hardcore History on your drive back from Texas.
Yes. So when I am planning on having a trip of more than an hour, let's say I'm going to and from Boston, which I may be doing pretty regularly, I plan on listening to more hardcore history. It's that's really the only podcast that I have proactively downloaded and listened to on my own. And I plan on listening to everything in the hardcore history catalog. If I were to listen to other podcasts, they would probably mostly be science and tech related.
Yep.
And perhaps if there were some heavy metal podcasts, I might be interested in that. Although I have not looked into that, so I don't know if there are any.
Now, Lewis, when you say you predict you might be frequently driving back and forth from Boston, I explain that. I thought you were just moving to Boston and that then you would be there.
Well, not driving. I mean, coming back to Western Mass on weekends occasionally.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And in which case I would probably be taking a train or bumming a ride from you.
Yes.
And so I can listen to hardcore history.
There you go. Yeah. Although I think a stipulation of me giving you a ride would be that we not listen, that I choose what's on the radio.
Oh, I have headphones, Dave. You don't have to worry about that.
All right. That is it for audience questions this week. Please email us your questions every Friday. At the end of the show, we answer 3 questions. We are glad to take any type of question that you want answered. The show doesn't have to end here. There's the bonus show coming up next, but you have to be a member, davidpakman.com/membership to sign up. And remember, this Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, all members will be invited to a private town hall video conference with Lewis and with me, where we will give you, instead of just 10 minutes of answering your questions, a full hour of answering your questions.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.